John loved his wife. He had known her since high school. They were friends. Then they went to the same university and started dating there. After graduating from the institute, they got married. Jennifer was a good wife. At least it seemed that way to John. After the birth of their second child, she decided to stay home with the kids, and John didn't mind at all. It was all good. The oldest child was 5 years old, and the youngest was 3. When Jennifer asked her husband to hire a nanny, she herself said she wanted to take some courses and then go to work so she would stay home. "I'm bored." John agreed, finances permitting, and a nanny was hired. Jennifer disappeared 3 times a week from morning until late afternoon. John was busy with work and paid no attention to her. When he returned, his wife was always home. But one day, he came back and Jennifer was gone. Her things were gone too. All she did was text him on his phone that she had found true love and their life together was a mistake. She had left the children to her husband, would file for divorce herself, and had no claim to the property. John was upset by this message and did not know what to do. He tried to call his wife, but the number was disconnected. A week of searching got him nowhere. He called Jennifer's mother, Mary, told her what had happened, and she came over immediately. Mary was not an old woman, looking fine, looking after herself. Her husband had died years ago, and she had never married, living for herself and her children. She told John that her daughter had not contacted her or told her anything. But after what happened, she doesn't want to communicate with her. She apologized to her son-in-law and apologized for raising such a promiscuous woman. John did not rebuke his mother-in-law, but asked her to stay with them a little longer and help with the children. Mary agreed to stay with them for a couple of months until things settled down. The apartment was large, and there was plenty of room for everyone. Mary paid off the nanny and began to take care of the house and the children herself. She looked after herself, ran in the morning, was always elegant, trim, well-groomed. John admired the young mother-in-law against his will. And he also realized that Mary was a very well-read woman, knew a lot. It was easy to talk to her on any topic. He was just used to telling her in the evenings how the day went. She often expressed interesting ideas about his business. She had a great sense of humor, good taste. John's apartment gradually turned into a much cozier nest than it had been under his wife. Friends who came to visit John never tired to praise Mary for home coziness, and John himself realized that he was much luckier with his mother-in-law than with his wife. 2 long months passed. Mary was still occupied with the house, and John was afraid to frighten her so that she did not go to herself. Now he had no idea how he would get along without her help. He hadn't heard from his wife, and she hadn't tried to contact him or the children. Today he had a business meeting at a newly opened restaurant. John and his partners had a delicious lunch and resolved some important issues. Just then, John saw his wife in the audience. Jennifer was talking to the waiter. John apologized to his partners and approached her. Jennifer turned slightly pale and said that the divorce had already been finalized, and she was already married, and they'd better not see each other again, and with the kids either. She owns this restaurant that her new husband gave her for her wedding. She's willing to pay alimony, but nothing more. Jennifer asked John not to come here anymore to avoid gossip. That afternoon, John got drunk. Not that he got drunk, but he came home late and tipsy. Mary walked out into the hallway and shook her head. She helped him undress and walked to the bedroom. John told her about his ex-wife, how she had humiliated him, how she had trampled everything he held dear. He sat down on the bed next to Mary, hugged her, and I think he even cried. In the morning, he woke up next to his mother-in-law. His aching head at first refused to remember details, and when he did, he blushed profusely. Maria woke up and watched him with a smile. "And you, Setek, well done, managed to surprise." She giggled and got out from under the blanket and began to dress. John admired his mother-in-law's slender figure against his will. At breakfast, they did not discuss what had happened. John firmly promised himself that it would never happen again. His mother-in-law said nothing, behaving as usual. John went to work, and in the evening, all the promises made to himself in the morning were forgotten. He needed this woman bright, beautiful, intelligent, and she did not deny herself the pleasure of living as she saw fit. They hid their relationship from others as best they could. Mary was already 52 years old, and John was 33. He looked older than his years, and she looked younger. At first glance, the difference was not very noticeable, but both thought that such a relationship was indecent. But a year later, John proposed to Mary. He said that he wanted to move to another city where no one knows them, so that there were no unnecessary crookedness. Mary agreed. The wedding was played quietly, without guests, a simple signing, a glass of champagne in the restaurant, and again everyday life. And 3 years later, Mary died. A stroke. 3 days in hospital, and that was it. John was very upset by the death of his second wife. And after another year, the first wife asked to return to the family. Her new husband turned out to be a cruel man, often raised his hand on her. John could not forgive her, although he did not prevent communication with the children. John was devastated after Mary's sudden death. She had brought so much life and joy into his world when he needed it most. Without her companionship, he felt lost. A few months after Mary's death, Jennifer approached John again to ask for reconciliation. She stated that she had left her abusive husband and wanted to give John and the children another chance. John was distraught. He was still angry at Jennifer's betrayal, but at the same time sympathized with her distress. Unsure of how to proceed, John suggested they all attend couples counseling to deal with their complicated emotions. The counselor helped John understand that people can change, and Jennifer seemed genuinely remorseful for the pain she'd caused. After much thought, John agreed to gradually bring Jennifer back into their lives. Through counseling, they worked to rebuild trust as co-parents. Eventually, Jennifer regained visitation rights with their children. Although the scars still hurt, John finds comfort in the fact that Mary's memory is alive, and he lives each day to the fullest. He shares stories of her vitality so that their children understand what kind of woman filled their home with light during such a dark period. Although the reconciliation process with Jennifer is still ongoing, John is more comfortable knowing that their family is healing old wounds. He's determined to carry the lessons of both relationships forward, to embrace second chances, and appreciate the fleeting moments